Chris Ginsbach with Carbon Creek Energy.
Carbon Creek Energy. Well, before we get into some of the big news you guys have, let's talk a little bit about what your guys' company is. Just give us a little elevator pitch, if you will, of what you guys are all about and where you guys are seeing some action.
Sure. Hey, appreciate the opportunity. So Carbon Creek Energy was formed in late 2015. We bought a coal bed methane field in the Powder River Basin. It was previously owned and operated jointly by Anadarko and WPX. And we bought them out of that position, about 6,500 operated wells, a pretty large footprint area in the basin there. And, the idea was we can try to get some operational efficiencies by bringing everything under one operatorship, under one team. But then also we liked the potential opportunity of the clean nature of coal bed methane, and specifically Powder River coal bed methane, because of the pure water that comes out of the formation there. We're able to just repurpose that back into the environment, do surface discharge. So we thought there were some operational efficiencies we could gain, but then also possibly some environmental attributes we could try to work on and bring something new to the market with that opportunity.
So one of the reasons we brought you on the program today was to talk about in the press release, at least it says first of its kind sale, commodities market, that sort of thing, and Frack-Free Natural Gas Certificates. Obviously there's some great buzzwords in there. First of its kind caught my attention, and then frack-free. Anytime you can kind of get the word free in there, of course, you're going to catch people's attentions too. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys have going on.
Sure. So, part of the inherent or kind of absolute properties of processing the methane from the coal seams, from the coal bed there in the Powder River, is that we do not and cannot hydraulically frack our wells. And so when we bought the asset, we were brainstorming on, hey, we've got this, what we think is a unique attribute to how we go about our production processes. And there is as you know, a pretty big anti-fracking movement out there, specifically on the coasts. But we're seeing it here in Texas. So we're headquartered in Texas. Operations are up in Wyoming, but there's even counties and cities here in our state that are banning fracking. And so what we wanted to try to determine was, hey, can we bring a product to market similar to a wind credit or a solar credit, where you take the unique attributes of how you're processing something and match that up with consumers that are wanting to kind of take advantage of reducing their footprint, whether it's because they either have a moral obligation because they want to do that, or because there's some sort of mandate that has been put upon them by some regulatory body. And we thought it would be pretty unique if we can try to do that with the attributes of our production processes, and the frack-free nature of it was what we had settled on, and then tried to essentially try to start making some phone calls, seeing how we could make that a reality.
So are you guys frack-freeing right now?
That's correct. Yeah, 100% of our production, we do not have to hydraulically frack the wells when we. That's what I thought.
Okay, want to make sure I was following you here, because I have interviewed a few people that they do some different methods. I know there's a guy up in Utah who's using some sort of solution to do some sort of frack-free type things, but those are very shallow type wells. There's a guy in Colorado using microwave. He's trying to experiment that way. Is there a way that you guys kind of, explain this frack-free technology in a very layman's term to kind of, dumb it down for the average person, I guess?
Sure. Well, part of it just goes to it's how you produce this this coal bed methane field. So, there's not any sort of new technology or new technique that we're bringing that can try to be applied to a deep formation, 2-mile horizontal lateral. When you drill into the Powder River coal bed, we're essentially drilling a water well, and our average depth is maybe 1,500, 1,700 feet. You drill a water well, you put a sub pump down hole, you pump the water out of the formation, and as you release the pressure that's down hole, the gas, I'm going to use a semi-technical term, it desorbs from the coal and then bubbles up. So think about opening up a Coke bottle. When you release that pressure, the CO2 starts bubbling. It's the same concept there.
Interesting. I would think
and the coal seams that we drill into are already naturally pretty well broken and split open, naturally fractionated, that we don't have to go down and try to perf and inject high pressure water and chemicals and some sort of proppant or sand into the formation. We can just suck the water out naturally, and the gas naturally bubbles up. So.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like it's a little bit more natural of a process, and also it probably would have a different effect on the fresh water.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the water that we're drilling into, the aquifer we're drilling into, is essentially a naturally charcoal filtered water. So it's pure water when it comes out up to the surface, and we're able to put that right back into the ecosystem. So we dump it right back into the Powder River Basin, or for the farmers and ranchers on the lands that we work on and operate on, we'll give that right back to them, and they can use it to irrigate their crops, to water their livestock. So it's actually increasing yields from that standpoint. So we're certainly not a water neutral company. We're even more so water positive. So we are repurposing fresh water back into the environment. That's providing life. We're certainly not taking fresh water out when it comes to the completions and the fractionating jobs.
So where do you guys see this going? I mean, in terms of like carbon credits, if you will, or whatever that is. That's
yeah.
You know, I've heard of these in the past a little bit. I'm not as familiar with what the carbon credits entail. Mostly, I know most of it from popular culture, to be honest. How do carbon credits work then? Companies, I guess, talk to me a little bit about that before you describe it, how you guys directly do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly how we viewed it when we thought we could make something of our unique attributes, as we related it to carbon credits. So, you know, the buzzword when it comes to carbon credits is, what's my carbon intensity? You know, how much carbon am I emitting into the atmosphere for whatever I am doing, whether it's flying jets or if I'm a Google or an Apple, you know, how many megawatts hours am I using in all of my facilities or my data centers around town, and I try to convert that electricity usage into a carbon amount, and they measure that by metric tons, and then I can go out and find projects that companies have done and essentially buy credits that they have, you know, maybe they've planted so many trees and it creates X amount of a carbon offset. I can go buy that offset to cancel out my usage. And that was essentially the same concept that we had here with our frack-free attributes. Is, you know, companies that want to that are using natural gas, you know, whatever it's for, either for their electricity or maybe for their heating uses, they can look at their gas bill, and those that want to, you know, support the lack of fracking that our production has, or kind of the more natural process, like you stated, the more natural process that our production characteristics bring to the market, they now have a way to buy the attributes that we are creating, or certificates that we are creating, to offset their usage.
Can I ask you about the natural gas industry for a second? Sure. We're very big believers in 2019 being the year of natural gas. I think it's about time some of these, as far as with the crude oil, I know you guys are doing natural gas. You guys aren't getting any crude oil, right? It's just natural gas?
Nope. Yeah, 100% dry gas.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know, but when you look at, say, the Bakken or even down the Permian, some of these different shale plays, of course, they're getting an abundance of natural gas coming off the crude oil where they're flaring it. They're getting so much of it. Then they got these science projects going on, these different wells, that sort of thing. And, you know, for a while, it's not economical for a lot of the oil companies, takes a little time, et cetera. I think between what what you have going on with some of the innovation out there and some of these other science projects finally coming to fruition, showing they can be economical for the oil companies. I just see 2019 as being a year for natural gas to make a big jump, because I don't know, it doesn't seem like it can get any cheaper at 25 cents and $3 that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's about time where the price might go up to the consumer by a little bit, which is going to be good news for the companies. They're going to get some money to finally reinvest back in there. I don't know. Where do you see 2019 being for natural gas?
Well, I mean, if you look at the strip, the forward strip for NYMEX, you really have seen a bump here over the last month as we're heading into winter. And the storyline coming into the winter was, hey, we're not putting enough in storage. But I think everyone was thinking, but look, with how much gas is coming on because of the associated gas with the oil drilling and with the shale production of these massive gas wells in the the Marcellus and Utica and some of those areas in the Northeast, we don't need as much in storage because there's still new production coming online, and that still could be the case. It could hold you over, but we're completely driven by weather models right now, and week to week what's going to happen with the weather. And that's why you've seen some of these pretty massive spikes, not only in NYMEX, but even more specifically around the country if you look at some of the other hubs around. But once April comes around and you're out of that draw, those draw months, the strip kind of goes right back down to the $2.50 to $3 range. I don't know. I like to. I'm trying to be positive on it. I certainly, I'm a gas guy, so I want to be long gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to give a false hope of all of a sudden, hey, because we have high gas prices now, it's high forever. I do think it'll come back down some, but it will be interesting to see how much of the LNG exports are going to be able to take. Are they going to be taking more gas than we're thinking, which really could push that price up and hold that floor number a little bit higher than we've been experiencing over the last kind of 18 to 24 months.
Okay, yeah. Again, this is speculation, which is always dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always dangerous, especially in the energy industry. But there is a few key things that you brought up that go well beyond speculation and become signals and indicators and that sort of thing. One is there's infrastructure being built, and until that infrastructure can be built, there's a ceiling on how much natural gas you can just get out of a certain shale play or out of a certain region, that sort of thing. The other one is the storage. I talked to one of the writers for the BOE report just last week, and he was talking about that same issue, about these storage issues with natural gas. There's such an abundance of it that nobody's really doing proper storage. And, a place like Chicago could actually have issues come the wintertime, like March, near the tail end of I think you mentioned like in April or something like that, but near the tail end of those cold months, to where it's not unfeasible to have an issue with natural gas, which seems unheard of because you're down in the Permian, you see the flaring. I'm up here in the Bakken, I see the flaring. We have so much natural gas, we'll just burn it off. And so to think that there would be a storage is almost unheard of.
Yeah. Well, but that's the issue, right? So especially here in the Permian, you see all the flares. It's because there's not enough pipeline capacity to get it somewhere to get used.
Right.
So if there's not enough going into storage, or companies were not buying enough to take it into storage because they think there's going to be enough production coming online. Well, there may be, but is there actually enough production coming online that they can actually get it to their city gate or to their burner tip?
Yeah,
and it really could. If we continue to have, if we have a cold December into December, January, February, there could be some really massive price spikes. It'll be very interesting to watch. As all of that kind of relates to to what we were doing with our attributes. The biggest thing that we were trying to find was, what's another way that we can get a revenue stream? Because no matter how I produce it or how someone in the Permian Basin or the Bakken produces it, you're getting the same price because it's a commodity, right? But even though we have different attributes, characteristics that help bring it to market, no one was getting compensated for if they're doing it differently. If we have a lower impact on the environment, we're not getting treated any differently with our product versus someone who who maybe is consuming a bunch of fresh water during their completion process. And that's really what we think is the revolutionary change here. With the help of